Blah, 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 blah. Uh. Hey guys, welcome to Sketch A Day. I'm Spencer, where every day I give you something new and hopefully interesting about drawing to learn and practice and do on your own. But before we begin, I want you to make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on alerts. If this is your first time and you have no idea what this is, I'm an industrial designer. I've been doing this for over a decade. So be sure to come find me on Instagram as well at sketchaday.com, where I post sketches and mini lessons as well. So today I'm just going to do a simple object. We're going to do a faucet, something you'd find in your bathroom, kitchen, that kind of thing. But more importantly, it's going to be made of chrome, stainless steel, that kind of thing. So we're going to take a look at reflections and kind of how I like to think about those shinier objects. So if you are interested in materials and you want to support the channel, be sure to check out the materials list in the description. I post that on every video. So if you do need to purchase materials, do it that way because we get a little kickback here and that helps support what we're doing. So with that, let's get started. So I'm going to take some cheap paper here to kind of map out my design. I'm also using marker paper. That's the pad I'm using. It is this Copic marker paper pad. So the reason I'm using this is I don't want to dry out my nice markers. I'm going to be using Copic markers as well. So let's start with the tracing paper. Now, as far as point of view goes, I want to draw the object in a way that's familiar to how I might see it in real life. So I'm going to draw it as if I were looking a little bit down at the object. Okay, so with a faucet, we have a few things. I'm going to start by just drawing a base plate of some sort, and we're just going to focus on roughing it out and figuring out what we're doing as we go. So let's say we curve the base a little bit. So now that I have my base wireframe, I can just draw a nice curve here. I'm going to drop a center line, because what I want to be able to do now is then draw a cylinder into a sphere. I'm gonna make this a little bit somewhat modern. So we'll keep the geometry fairly simple. Okay, so we have one axis going like so. Now, depending on which way the faucet's facing, right? Maybe this is one that, rotates, so we need a part in here. I'm just gonna draw a line like so, because this is gonna help me draw the rest of my form. So there we have 1, 2 lines. Okay, and if this is rounded in, primitive geometry, like so, we can just add this little line here, and that's going to help define the transition on the surface. Okay, now if we have a spout that's going down, I'll make it a little bit longer so we can see it just a little bit. And then as far as hot and cold, maybe there's some sort of touch control on the front here. So, you have hot and then cold, or some mix. Or maybe it's a knob. You can also do something like that. But we'll just keep that as a placeholder for now. Just like that. Okay, and then transition into our base as well. And let's say this is the sink, or the front of the sink, like so. And we had a contour line coming down just to show what that is right there. Okay, so pretty simple to start. And now I can take this page, rip that off, I'm going to set that to the side, and it seems like this isn't necessarily in a position I want, so I'm just trying to make sure. It's kind of hard for you guys to see maybe on the overhead here, but this paper is translucent, so I can see through it just a little bit. And so I'm just trying to position it on the page so that now I can redraw what we did before by focusing on, my apologies for the background there. So now we can redraw that initial sketch. And by redraw, I mean, rather than slowly and deliberately trying to trace everything, I'm actually just being very free and expressive because I want there to be that energy in my sketch that only really comes if you are kind of just going at a good clip as you're drawing, okay? So let's get this base plate in, adding a slight curve on the base as well, because I felt like it. And let's get our other side in here, like so. And a line for the sink area. I'm just gonna add a double line down here because I want to show that maybe there's some sort of gasket between the faucet and kind of our sink area here. Okay, so this I'm gonna turn into a background element right here, this line, and just bring that down like so. Okay, just planning ahead. Like I said, we had a little dial on the front, so I just want to sketch that in. Again, always think of the economy of lines. So how many lines you're spending, your lines are kind of like money, right? So you want to save your money as much as you want to save your lines. Okay, the background will clean up, not too worried about that. So now, at this point, I just want to make sure I have enough details here, maybe some indication of a little lever, just in case I want to fill the sink up. Okay, and I think that's good for now. Okay, so at this point, what I want to do is start taking my gray markers and I want to work light until I get it right. But more importantly, what I'm going to do here is start to map out where I'm going to have some reflections. So if this thing is all shiny, for one, I know I'm going to reflect, it's going to reflect itself, okay? There's also going to be some sort of compressed reflection along the base, like so. And let's say in this scene, we're going to have things like this happening, where on the top we may get a highlight, a nice clean highlight that then runs down the side like so. But we're also going to get these dark areas. So I'll shade these in, at least the dark spots, with the gray to start. So we're going to get fairly dark here fairly quickly, but I do want to try and maintain some contrast as we're going. On this dial, now I can change my reflection a little bit, like so. And then on the front, I'm just going to keep it a little streaky right through there. On this side, maybe some indication of a shadow from the top itself coming down into the stem. On the front here, let's just keep this nice and flat and smooth. And if you're curious about how these reflections work or what I'm thinking, I'm really just imagining that I am standing in front of this or something in the environment is being reflected into it. Because that's kind of what happens in real life, is you get things like, let's say there's something on the wall here, that's going to be reflected into my chrome surface. But if there's a nice bright light up above, that light would be reflected as well. So that's kind of how I think about this chrome or metal shiny surface as I'm trying to map out some reflections with my markers. Okay, so now we've done that with the 30%. I'm going to jump to my 50 here and start to just push the contrast in specifically these shadowy areas right here in the middle. And we're going to keep working this until we have kind of a nice bit of contrast as well as highlight while maintaining the fidelity of the overall sketch. Okay, so right here, maybe there's something nice and shiny reflecting in. I may come back and touch that up with my gray marker a bit. But again, just trying to be a bit sketchy and capture the effect or feel. And like I mentioned, there's going to be reflections of the top happening right here. I'm going to go a little bit darker on this front face as well. Just kind of hitting the marker, fading it in. If you let your markers dry just a little bit, gives you a chance to then hit the same area again and get some nice contrast happening. Okay. On the front here, we have our little dial we sketched in. Just make sure we get both of these. And we have our nice crisp reflections on the top here, like so. Again, just being careful to not overdo it, if you will. But also just make sure that there is enough contrast happening. Contrast is how you're going to communicate your form or three-dimensionality whenever you're doing a drawing, whether it's a product design drawing or something else. Okay, I just wanted to kind of add a little bit of gray on the underneath here. Maybe some in this middle area as well. Just fan that down. And then on the front, again, making sure that we kind of map our reflections here as we go. All right, so now we've hit 50%. I'm gonna jump and grab either a 70 or 80%. Found a 70% here. And again, just work these reflections so that they get a little bit darker each time. So you wanna work lightest lights to darkest darks, okay, with the marker, or light until you get it right. So unless you're 100% sure of what you're doing, always work with a lighter marker, because then at least you can cover up any mistakes or fix mistakes as needed. So just a little pro tip for you there. All right. And we'll just keep making these reflections darker and creating the blends we need as we go. So I'm just focusing on trying to get that crispness and contrast where I need it, and leave everything else with a lighter touch. Okay. So here, for example, right where this reflection on the perimeter, and if you notice, well, maybe you can't, I'll zoom in here for you. So right on the edge, I actually have just a little bit of a gap. And that gap is suggesting that there's some rim or reflected light in the scene that's happening. So that's why I back off the edge ever so slightly as I'm doing this chrome. Okay. And so you'll want to think of, okay, if this was in an environment, what are some things that, you know, might reflect into my chrome here, and how do I represent that in a monotone or monochromatic way rather. All right, so now I'm going to keep pushing the contrast, and I think I'm going to go with black at this point, or C9, which I also have. Let's do C9, and just in these areas where we need to really have that dark reflective bit, nice sharp crisp contrast, like so. Just making sure that if something's meant to be light, we leave it light. Okay. Just like that. And if you want to get good at reflections or doing chrome or things like that, whether it be with markers or some other medium, one of the best things you can do is just pay attention around you to how these things look, and that'll help you know kind of where to map and put highlights, reflections, and so forth. Because really you're trying to just symbolically represent reality in a way that's familiar to people. And that, for me anyways, is a fundamental part or bit of sketching. So if you can pick up on the cues of what makes something look shiny or chrome and then recreate that, then chances are you're going to have a nice successful drawing that looks and feels like people would expect it to look and feel in real life. So I wouldn't say there's a hard and fast rule besides whatever you observe as being grounded in reality. That's what I'd focus on. So remember I said I wouldn't worry about the background. That's because I was kind of intending to make it black. So I'm just going to trace around the drawing here, leaving a little bit of a rim, because that's going to help me pop this off the page a bit. Okay, so right in here, just going to shade this in. I have this nice big Copic marker. I always call it a Sharpie, but it's a Copic marker. And just being ever so careful, I can rotate this guy and have it on the side here. But eventually, ultimately, what I want to do is be able to do this, where I can now shade in the entire area. It looks like my marker is drying up, so hopefully I make it to the other side of the drawing here. Maybe if I go a little slower. I do have ink to refill this, and if you missed that video, just check that out on the channel on how to refill those markers, especially if you're using a nicer brand like Copic marker. And no, they don't sponsor me or pay for these videos. I like their products quite a bit. So be sure to, if you're interested anyways, use the links in the video to get those materials. All right, so home stretch, we're almost there. Just being careful, fill in this background. Come on, marker, make it. You gotta make it. All right, we're almost there. I actually kind of like it a little bit streaky. Kind of has a good feel to it. So I'm okay with that. And it feels hand done, which is one of the things I like about a good sketch, is it feels like a human did it. I'm totally okay with that. All right, oops. So I'm going to switch to a smaller black marker now, because I need to be real careful. All right, so I got my smaller black marker. Now I can just finish this out like so. I hope that was the same black. I was a little bit worried I was using, there's two different blacks with the Copic markers. So there's special black and then black, or 100 and 110. In case you're wondering, I know it's a question a lot of you were probably stressing about. Just kidding. So there I have a nice black background for the faucet itself. Like this sink surface here, I'm just going to hit the bit of gray marker and fan it out. So hit it on the center like so, and kind of fan it out. Blend that out. Same thing on this side, blend that out. And just add maybe a little bit of shadowing, suggesting that this is reflecting into the surface as well, the nice shiny countertop surface that this thing is on. So just a little reflection there. But hopefully you can kind of see the difference that makes and how that works. And mind you, this is all gray. If we wanted to use a color, we certainly could have as well. And just below here, where we have that drop off, I'm just going to finish that out like so. And maybe just a little bit of gray in the background here. just on the sides of the faucet. Why? Because right now it just felt right. So sometimes as I'm drawing, I'll experiment, and if it doesn't work, that's fine, but if it works, that's great. And maybe we have a little indicator on the front for a hot, cold on the faucet. So if you rotate it one way, it's hot, rotate it the other way, it's cold, that kind of thing. And I'm just gonna touch up some of these reflective bits, just a little bit of black. Okay, just to punch this even more. Like so. Like so. And for this, I'm using it's a Pitt brush pen. Oops. Sign your work. Nugent 2020. Because if you don't track, you don't know. And if you don't know, how can you grow? So there's our final drawing of a faucet, a little chromed out, shiny. And that's kind of how I go about mapping out those reflections. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this entire video. I know it's a lot of information, and I probably didn't cover everything, but the great thing is I have tons of videos on the channel you can check out. Just look at the playlist, lots of stuff for you to learn, and I will be posting videos daily. So definitely come back for more if you've enjoyed this. Come say hi on Instagram. I'm at sketchaday.com. And just one more note, you'll want to go to sketchaday.com/newsletter, because if you sign up, you get a free how to sketch or super sketch tips guide, which is basically some knowledge I've collected, experiences, that kind of thing that I've collected over the years that I wanted to share with you guys. So there's even a free step-by-step demo of how to draw a chair in there as well. Well, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time, hopefully right here on Sketchaday.